Welcome back, everybody, to Riddle School 4. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the little icons really quick. I love these so much. Yep, just step out of the screen, why don't you? But yeah, so this is Riddle School 4. Let's see if, as the games get harder, I get dumber. Accessing and analyzing map system. Alright, so it's programming the school. Analyzation process complete. Riddle School 4. So I'm assuming this is going to be more of like a technical type of game. It's Fred. Alright then. Phil's teacher, Mr. Munch, was the original architect of Riddle University. The school was built above a long pit of lava that he himself dug near an active underwater volcano. His plan to murder Phil Eggtree to forever rid him of this world succeeded. And no one cared. Every other student of Riddle University eventually died from car wrecks, old age, and unforeseen disasters. Each one of on their deathbed whispered their final wish. Please don't let there be any more Riddle School games. Stay tuned after credits to see your time. That was like, what, a minute? Maybe like 30 seconds. John Bro really just did everything, didn't he? Oh, now we got some new people. Beta tester 655321. Just as every book has a start and a finish, a series must have a beginning and an end. I deliberately sucked all the room for another sequel out of the series so that it too may end. John Bro. You beat the game in 7.6 seconds. You've also unlocked real fun facts, special features, now available in the main menu. Special features. What happened to all the characters, how the life of every character since the first Riddle School game turned out, make fun of the Riddle University, aka how Mr. Munch fulfilled his plan, audio commentary for the game's ending. No game should ever seriously have commentary, but John Bro made one.
To balloon the file size and make it look like the same size as Riddle School 3 or something similar. I wanted to make a commentary just because it seemed like it would be a funny idea to have for the game because most of the game is a movie. And I figured I would have to make a commentary better than the one for Pain on the Brain 3 because that one sucked. I already had it in my mind that Phil should die in Riddle School 4. Because I got so sick of requests for a fourth Riddle School game. And I started one before called Riddle University. but it wasn't going to be very good. I only had planned the first room, which is the one that's seen in Riddle School 4. And I think it was just ripping off of the idea of another game where you had to make a fishing pole out of basic objects like a pencil and a string. I don't remember exactly. So my friend Yoshi Egg came over. He was the other voice in the Pain on the Brain 3 commentary, and I said, I'm going to make Riddle School 4 tonight. And he's like, all right. So I started with that room, and I started animating Phil falling to his death in a lava pit. There were several ways he could have died, but we figured that was the funniest and the easiest to make. And one of my computers is a flash computer, and one of them is an internet computer, so I have to use the flash drive to go between the two. So I went to Yoshi Egg, who was on the internet computer playing RuneScape, and I said, hey, can I use the computer for a second? I need to find some sad music for when Phil dies. It was funny. He said I could never imitate exactly how I sounded whenever I said that, but I tried, so... in one night, this game was born, mostly this movie, and we laughed our heads off watching the ending. Well, that's really about it. I need to think of more to say. The real reason I made this game was because I wanted to see the reaction on Newgrounds. When I was starting to make the first game out of the series, I wasn't picturing at all that I would ever make something like this. I was just trying to make a ripoff of Pico's School by Tom Fulp. And now it's a 4-parter where he dies. This is the best game ever. This is my favorite of the whole series, and it always will be. I'm gonna try to scream like Phil again. No, that's not quite it. Oh well.
I absolutely love that. I really did. Alright, Riddle School maybe. Plan to kill Phil. LOL rhyme. Build a time machine scratched out. Dig a hole into a lava stream. Build a college on top of it. Request being a teacher there and arrange seating chart for Phil to be on the hole. Riddle School. Oh, okay, so they actually drew the layout for that. That's a nice touch. Floor is less thick in one location. Set tiny explosive on dinner spot, remote controlled. Description: Phil, egg tree given to me, bald, looks like this. Always wears green. He needs to sit in the desk closet closest to the door so I can kill him. Killed Phil. Now what? Fred didn't really like school, but he thought it was wise to stay in school anyway and make the best grades he could while not doing very much. He grew up and took many effortless occupations such as music conductor, substitute teacher, and abstract artist. One day he fell face first into a vat of paint. You can guess what happened. Smiley had a legitimately good life. She grew up with the perfect 100s in every one of her class and had a long-lasting career in biomedical science. She got married to the perfect man who just so happened to have a smiley face for his head just like her. They spent the rest of their days together living happily in a treehouse in a beautiful forest. Zach was so determined not to be cold anymore that he bought a plane ticket to the tropics midway into his first year of college. Right above a volcanic island, the plane ran into a bad turbulence and Zach ended up crashing through a window. He fell into an erupting volcano and froze to death. Yep, because that's how science works. Richie dropped out of high school wishing he hadn't paid so much attention to collecting stuff. He was mugged in a dark alley and woke up trapped in a smelly dumpster. Nobody ever found him. 5 sold t-shirts online for a living, and his talent was eventually realized by a big graphic design company. He made the mistake of asking for a slightly large sum of money, and the company ripped him off and sued him. 5 was put in jail for the next 5 years. Not once for the rest of his life did he have enough money to sue them back. 808. 5's dad, he insisted on being a janitor at elementary school because he loved to clean so much until his son was unfairly sued by a big t-shirt designing company. He realized he would need a better paying job and ended up being a garbage boy in France. He was having so much fun that he forgot his son existed. Janitor in RS2. The janitor was locked in his own closet in middle school one day, not long before the school closed down and was replaced with a new one. He ate his mop, drank his dirty mop water, and nibbled on his hat as he was stuck in the darkness of the closet. The last sound he ever heard was the sound of a wrecking ball smashing the walls. Janitor in Riddle School 3. He claimed he could hear a pipe problem from a mile away, and that was in fact true. His uncanny ability to hear toilet clogs earned him a television show reputation as the perfect eared plumber. The show was cancelled after 2 years because it realized nobody had ears. Furious, the janitor left off the bridge. Mr. Calm. Mr. Calm was never a very smart person. After the first Riddle School game, he learned about how small the percentage of drinkable water was on the planet. He decided right then never to drink anything. The end. Miss Coffee. Miss Coffee was never a very smart person. She told Mr. Calm that nearly all the world's water was drinkable, but then she realized she only drank coffee and wasn't really sure how much straight up water was drinkable. So she went to the beach because there's a lot of water in the ocean. She drank as much as she possibly could. The end. Not very good for you. Miss Green. Miss Green once drank 99 cups of coffee. On the 100th cup, she died of caffeine overdose. Teacher in RS1. The teacher once screamed at the school students so loudly that the walls of the room was in collapse around her. Nobody knew what to put on her tombstone because nobody knew her name. Mr. Oboe. Mr. Oboe was getting ready to sit down one night at a school play about knights and horses. He was told before the show to hold a sword, which was one of the props. It wasn't a real sword, but ironically he still died from it because the sword was made of allergy medicine, and Mr. Oboe was horribly allergic to that. Greg Sleep. Greg Sleep was asleep for 18 of the first 20 years of his life. One day he woke up and realized how much he aged, and after panicking decided to move on. He got a driver's license, was on his way to the grocery store, and had a fatal wreck sleeping at the wheel. Mrs. Sleep. She once got married and had a son named Greg. Eventually he died sleepwalking off a cliff. Mr. Sum. Mr. Sum was a math teacher for his entire life. He was gardening on the roof of a building and was suddenly mugged by a bear who ate him 30 minutes later. Mr. Soggy. Mr. Soggy simply couldn't find his glasses, so he was on his way to get new glasses and got in a fatal car wreck because he couldn't see. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed was reading a comic book in the Riddle High School library. He was reading the words "Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt me" when he got a nasty paper cut and lost every inch of blood in his body. Okay. Mrs. Flask invented a flying car and discovered there's no air in space. Interesting. Monkey hater Mrs. Count was bored at home and decided to look for games on the internet. She found a game called Riddle School 3, which she proceeded to beat twice in a row. Not long after, she was put in an insane asylum, whispering wildly something about a monkey doll curse. That makes sense why she doesn't like monkeys. That really does. Mrs. Oddverb. Mrs. Oddverb was very tired of people taking one look at her and thinking she was a guy, so she went berserk and set fire to a shoe store. She stole a small boat and sailed away from civilization, never to be seen again. Mrs. Moose's was at a bank, and a bank robbery suddenly took place. The robber told her to get down on the ground. She said the ground was awfully dirty and it wouldn't be good for her new dress. She was shot multiple times and her dress was ruined. Mr. Crucian, former principal of Riddle School Elementary, is put in prison for life because he physically beat a student's head in. Mr. Counselor of Riddle Middle School was was robbed of all his possessions unexpectedly. Several weeks after the event, Mr. and Mr. noticed he didn't even have a house. He died of starvation right after that because he also apparently didn't know how he had no food. Mr. Potato discovered the magic of video games right before Riddle School 3. He did nothing but play video games after Riddle School 3. He died happily right after beating a game called Riddle School 3, 6 feet under. He's still holding his favorite video game controller. Joe didn't make it to college. His grades were terrible. He thought to himself, I wonder what gasoline tastes like. His will stated that he wanted to be cremated after his death. What his friends didn't know was that his stomach was still full of gasoline, and it didn't mix too well with fire. Diz, supposedly a foreign exchange student, Diz popped up into a Riddle School University a single time. After that, as if it all completely disappeared from existence. Chub Munch. Chub stopped eating right after Riddle School 4 for the rest of his life, simply because he got so big his cheeks covered up too much of his mouth for him to eat anything else. He lived an entire century after he stopped eating because of his metabolism. It is rumored Earth's most devastating earthquakes were caused by Chuck struggling to move. Mrs. Munch. Mrs. Munch loved to serve food, but she felt like she served her son Chuck too much, and she didn't know what to do. She discussed her internal struggle with her husband, Mr. Munch, and he said she should just give all of Chuck's food to him. She soon realized she had a terrible husband and divorced him, beating her son more than ever. Mr. Munch. Mr. Munch, devastated by his wife's decision of divorce, started devising a plan to take the life of every one of her friends and acquaintances. He realized he didn't know as much about his former wife as he thought he did, and the only person he could remember her talking to was a kid named Phil Egtree. He killed Phil and later died by overeating. Phil Egtree. Phil only went to college because he figured it had to be better than elementary, middle, and high school. He went to the newly built Riddle School University that was local. It was cheap and he didn't have any particular plans for the rest of life, so it wouldn't matter what classes he took. At first he thought this Riddle School was just like the other three he escaped from. Just when he considered trying to make his fourth escape, he found out it was completely different. Nice. Real fun facts. Time to make, like 2 days. Frame rate 30 FPS. Library items 160 plus. Frames no more than 5,000. Rooms in the map, inaccessible scenes too. I remember when I went to the San Diego Comic Con for the first time back in 2008. Tom Fulp asked me if I had plans to make a Riddle School 4, to which I said something along the lines of, I'm thinking of making a fourth one. At some point after that I started making it. I lost motivation, and at the same time people started making urgent requests for a fourth game. So I decided, even though I told my fans I'd never make the game, that I'd go ahead and make this. As I type this now, I have no clue what the reactions of Newground public will be, but I hope they enjoy playing it as much as I enjoyed making it. I laughed so hard. Click here to see fake fun facts. I made a final Riddle School. Time to make 10 months, 30 over 10,000, 5 scenes, 48 rooms. I made this final finale to the Riddle School series because I've probably gotten more messages in my Newgrounds private message inbox and more comments on my user page, blog posts about Riddle School 4 than anything else. I said I was never going to make the game, but that was simply a diversion until I finally unleashed the beast, and now that it's out, I'm certain I won't make any more. Oh, I didn't know that these... Oh, hello. So, I think that there's clear. Okay, I know there's. So there's no winning it. I think that's gonna be everything. I think that's gonna be everything for Riddle School 4 because there's nothing else. So yeah, believe there's a Riddle School 5, so I'll see you in Riddle School 5, I suppose.